According to General Hospital teasers, Maxie Jones will leave the show this week as Kirsten Storms takes a break from the ABC serial. So will Jen Sidwell drug and kidnap the mother of three? Fans know Sidwell is aware that Maxie was the only woman on the Deception crew willing to come forward and expose Sonny Corinthos for the corrupt money invested in Deception, making her a liability. Maxie, Tracy Quartermaine, Lucy Coe, and Brooklyn Quartermaine Chase discussed whether they should notify the police. Tracy was initially all in on going to the PCPD, but Sidwell persuaded her to reconsider. Furthermore, Sidwell discovered from Lucy that Maxie was the only member of the leadership team who voted against not going to the police, putting her in a difficult situation. The GH teaser video for the week of August 18th to 22nd was recently revealed, and the very last segment features Maxie applying a Deception brand skincare cream on her cheek. Maxie performs the sample while Lucy Coe discusses with Flora Gardens, the host of Home and Heart. The Deception ladies have returned to the show, and as fans know, these live parts are typically fraught with tension. Brooklyn is shown in the promo watching from the side of the set, off camera. BLQ yells as she sees Maxie collapse soon after administering the lotion. Maxie will be off canvas for months and is unlikely to return until the end of this year, possibly early 2026. So the GH team needs a compelling plot for her departure as Kirsten Storms relocates from Los Angeles to Tennessee. It appears that there will be a hazardous chemical in the face cream cosmetic that causes Maxie to have a medical emergency, and Sidwell is likely to be responsible. He can't risk Maxie's conscience getting the best of her and causing her to break the beans about the illegal transfers, and he's also aware that Maxie's stepfather, Max Scorpio, is a high-ranking officer at the PCPD. Could Sidwell devise a method to keep Maxie quiet? There are numerous ways in which this may all unravel. One apparent one is kidnapping Maxie to keep her quiet, whether her death was staged or she was snatched while on her way to the hospital. Another possibility is that the drugged cream would lead Maxie to lapse into a coma, which would be extremely upsetting given that her best friend, Lulu Spencer, recently awoke from a 4-year coma. But a coma would surely accomplish the purpose of removing Maxie out of storylines in a surprising way, as fans wait for her big return. There has been considerable conjecture that Peter August is the mystery man behind Professor Henry Hank Dalton's research lab project, as well as Dr. Britt Westbourne's work at 5 Poppies. As a result, this could be another reason Sidwell keeps Maxie quiet in non-fatal ways. While Peter and Maxie were not on the greatest of terms before to his death in 2022, he remained fascinated with her, and she remains the mother of his child, Bailey Jones. Sidwell would never want to offend his investing partner by murdering Peter's baby mama, right? General Hospital spoilers suggest that viewers will be on the edge of their seats as Maxie leaves the canvas, so it will be interesting to see how she exits storylines between August 18th and 22nd. According to General Hospital spoilers, Brooklyn Quartermaine and her husband Harrison Chase are facing challenges in their personal lives. They've had reproductive troubles and other challenges while trying to start a family. At the same time, their energies are drawn toward other people. Are we about to see the beginning of the end for BLQ and Chase? Do you believe they are better off apart? Brooklyn Quartermaine and Harrison Chase struggle complicating matters, is the fact that Dante Falconeri and Brooklyn have recently discovered that they are the parents of Gio Palmieri, the consequence of a hidden teen pregnancy from years ago. As a result, Brooklyn wants to put off adopting with Chase. But he is upset that her first child is delaying preparations for his first child, and the tension is building. However, desperate BLQ can't think about anything but repairing her connection with Gio, who is furious with her. Will Chase stray? Meanwhile, BLQ is ignoring Chase and spending more time with his ex, Willow Tate. Willow needs a friend, and Chase has a good heart. Do you imagine him and Willow rekindling their romance as they offer each other support during difficult times? Similarly, Dante and Brooklyn are growing closer as they work out how to reconcile with their kid. Dante and BLQ have given Gio room, but it's not working. This past week, the two shared some memorable moments as they discussed their predicament. Who isn't pulling for this adorable family? It makes sense for Chase to want to aid Willow. He not only knows her well, but he despises seeing her suffer as a result of losing custody of her children to Michael Corinthos. Chase even questioned Michael about not allowing Willow to visit their children, so he clearly feels compelled to protect her. Will Dante and BLQ reconnect? At some point, Gio must allow himself to get to know BLQ and Dante's family. When that happens, Chase may detest the circumstance and work even harder to hide himself in his work, which is to save Willow. It started with a whisper, a slight tremor in the fabric of her well-maintained existence. Maxie was always careful. Her days a symphony of precision: morning yoga, boardroom skirmishes, and evenings spent beguiling investors at galas. However, in the weeks preceding her departure, those closest to her observed a shift. Her typical glow seemed faded, and her laughing was less frequent. She'd dismiss worries with a wave of her manicured palm, citing stress or a new product launch. But the truth was much darker, and it lurked in the very items that had made her famous. The first sign appeared on a crisp October morning. Maxie sat at her vanity, the mirror reflecting a face that had appeared on numerous magazine covers. She reached for her famous Lumiere moisturizer, a velvety cream in an opalescent jar that promised to keep her young forever. As she stroked it over her skin, she felt a subtle tingle on her cheeks, not the lovely warmth of premium skincare, but something sharper, almost biting. She frowned, dismissing it as a small irritant, possibly a new substance her team had been testing with. However, the sensation persisted, and by dusk, her skin felt tight and her vision was blurry at the corners. She called her dermatologist, who diagnosed it as an allergic reaction and prescribed a mild antihistamine. Maxie, the eternal optimist, accepted the answer, but a seed of doubt had been planted. Days proceeded into weeks, and the symptoms became more sinister. Headaches throbbed behind her temples, her hands trembled as she held her morning coffee, and a light rash appeared along her collarbone. She concealed it beneath silk scarves and high-necked gowns, but the mirror did not lie. Her mirror revealed a woman dying, her vitality sapped by something she couldn't identify. Maxie began to suspect the unthinkable. Her cosmetics, the foundation of her business, were failing her. She requested private tests on her items and quietly sent samples to a reputable lab. The results were chilling. Minuscule levels of a neurotoxic, skillfully concealed within the chemical matrix of her moisturizer, were found in each jar from her personal supply. The information struck her like a physical blow. Someone had tampered with her products, infusing them with poison so subtle that it evaded regular quality control measures. Maxie's mind raced, sorting through both foes and allies. Her empire had empowered her, but power generates resentment. Was it a rival, envious of Lumiere's dominance? An unhappy employee who was passed up for promotion? Or someone closer, someone who knew her routines well? She told no one, not even her sister Clara, who handled Lumiere's marketing. Trust, once her currency, now seemed like a luxury she couldn't afford. Maxie's investigation became an obsession. She scoured staff records, supplier contracts, and production logs, her nights extending into dawn as she pursued leads. She observed inconsistencies, batches of moisturizer diverted through an unfamiliar distributor, and a new chemist hired without her permission. Each clue tightened the knot in her gut, yet the answers were elusive. Her health continued to deteriorate, with the toxin working its slow, methodical malice. She ceased using the contaminated items, but the damage had been done. Her body became a fight, and she was losing ground. The tipping point occurred at the annual Lumiere Gala, a spectacular event attended by Cresthaven's elite. Maxie, determined to keep up appearances, wore a crimson gown and a grin that disguised her exhaustion. She mingled, her charm a well-honed shield, yet her gaze swept the crowd for betrayal. Midway through the evening, she experienced a severe bout of dizziness and nearly collapsed. Clara hurried to her side and led her to a secluded room. Maxie confronted her sister in the dimly lit study. "Who is doing this to me?" she whispered, her voice raw. Clara's face wrinkled, but her quiet told volumes. Maxie's heart fell when she realized that her sister, her confidant, was involved. The truth emerged in fragments. Clara, who was drowning in debt from a failed side endeavor, had been blackmailed by a dark character known only as the broker. This mystery entity had entered Lumiere's supply chain and threatened to expose Clara's financial devastation unless she allowed the meddling. Clara stated she didn't realize the full quantity of the poison, believing it was intended to sicken rather than kill Maxie. But the betrayal went deeper than the toxin. Maxie, split between love and rage, banished Clara, vowing to discover the broker's identity alone. Her investigation led her to Cresthaven's underbelly, a realm of backroom dealings and whispered threats. She hired a private investigator, Victor, a grizzled man who could easily negotiate the town's shadows. They traced the broker back to a shell business owned by Evelyn Voss, a rival cosmetics mogul. Evelyn, whose own brand had suffered under Lumiere's influence, staged the poisoning in a desperate attempt to recapture her market share. The evidence was damning, including wire transfers, encrypted emails, and a recorded discussion in which Evelyn boasted about her elegant solution to Maxie's control. But facing Evelyn was not a straightforward matter. Maxie's health was gradually failing, her body weakened from months of exposure. She knew a public charge would set off a media frenzy, potentially destroying Lumiere before she could clear her name. Instead, she designed a bold and hazardous strategy. She summoned Evelyn to a secret meeting at the Thornton estate under the pretense of discussing a merger. The night was stormy, with rain battering the windows as the two women squared up in Maxie's study. Maxie, pale but firm, presented the evidence, her voice solid despite the tremble in her palms. Evelyn's composure cracked, and her denials crumbled beneath the weight of evidence. What followed was a confession of desperation. Evelyn admitted to engaging the broker, a fixer renowned for covert corporate sabotage. She said that she did not mean for the poison to prove harmful, but rather to damage Maxie's reputation sufficiently to disable Lumiere. However, the dosage had been incorrectly estimated, with significantly more serious repercussions than anticipated. Maxie listened calmly, but within she was angry. She could have filed charges and ruined Evelyn, but that would have revealed Lumiere's fragility. Instead, she proposed a deal. Evelyn would retire, sell her company, and leave Cresthaven. In exchange, Maxie would keep her secret, protecting them both from a public scandal. Evelyn agreed, her empire disintegrating as she signed the documents. But Maxie's victory was hollow. The poison had taken its toll, and her physicians cautioned about the long-term consequences: chronic exhaustion and brain impairment. She could no longer lead Lumiere in the same way she previously did. The empire she had created, the heritage she had adored, felt like a burden she could no longer bear. She made an unexpected decision. She would step down and delegate authority to her deputy, a faithful protégé named Lila. The announcement was presented as an opportunity to explore new horizons, but those who knew Maxie recognized the truth in her worn eyes. Her departure was as elegant as her existence had been. She threw one final gala, a farewell to the world she had created. The ballroom shone with chandeliers, and the air was heavy with murmurs about her leaving. Maxie, dressed in a midnight blue gown, spoke of gratitude and reinvention, covering the anguish of betrayal and illness. She left Cresthaven the next day, her whereabouts unknown to even those closest to her. Some claim she went to a property in Italy, while others mentioned a facility in Switzerland. Maxie remained elusive, as did the truth. In the months that followed, Lumiere thrived under Lila's leadership, its reputation untarnished by the scandal Maxie had buried. Clara, filled with shame, abandoned Cresthaven, her whereabouts as mysterious as her sister's. Evelyn's company was acquired by a multinational, and her name fell into obscurity. The broker vanished, like a ghost in the engine of corporate warfare. And Maxie? Her narrative became legendary, a cautionary tale about beauty and betrayal. Her cosmetics, once a sign of perfection, now conveyed a hint of danger, a reminder that even the most brilliant appearances can conceal lethal secrets. Cresthaven went on as towns do, with its elite seeking other stories to pursue. But Maxie's absence created a gap, a silent anguish in the hearts of those who knew her. Her kingdom survived, but the woman behind it had faded into the background, her departure a final act of defiance against a world that had attempted to break her. Perhaps she was rebuilding somewhere, with a spirit as strong as the empire she had left behind. Perhaps she was merely relaxing, her auburn hair catching the light of a fresh day, free of the poison that had almost killed her. Willow, a nurse with a soft attitude and a troubled past, has been friends with both Chase and BLQ. Her presence in their lives was first unassuming. She was a confidant, someone who listened without passing judgment. She and Chase had a history, a brief love relationship before BLQ entered the scene, but it seemed like they'd both moved on. Willow's life was complex, and her connection with Michael Corinthos provided both stability and pressure. Despite her dedication to Michael and Chase's marriage to BLQ, Willow's attachment to Chase remained strong over the months. The first hints of problems appeared at a charity dinner hosted by the hospital where Willow worked. The dinner was a magnificent occasion, with Port Charles's finest dressed to the nines, mingling beneath chandeliers that twinkled like stars. Chase and BLQ came as a pair, their outward display of unity perfect, her arm looped around his grin warm but guarded. Willow was also present, quietly but noticeably. She wore a simple green dress that caught the light, and when she and Chase locked eyes across the room, there was a brief but definite halt in the world around them. BLQ, ever astute, noticed. Her smile tightened, and while she said nothing, the seed of mistrust was planted. In the weeks that followed, BLQ's behavior changed. She got more possessive, her customary confidence sharpened. Chase, who took pleasure in his honesty, recognized the difference but couldn't pinpoint the source. He attempted to reassure her by doubling down on his commitment, but BLQ's fears, spurred by her own history of betrayal, grew. She began to suspect Chase's late nights at the precinct, his casual mentions of Willow, and the way he appeared to light up while discussing their shared history. To BLQ, it was more than just Willow. It was about what Willow represented. A softer, less convoluted type of love that she could never embody. Willow, for her part, was entangled in a web of her own creation. On paper, her marriage to Michael appeared to be secure, but there were fissures beneath the surface. Michael's dedication to his family's business frequently made Willow feel like an afterthought, and her long hours at the hospital didn't help. She found herself confiding in Chase more often, their chats drifting into familiar territory. They chatted about their former dreams, the days when they felt they could start a life together. Willow told herself it was innocent, but in Port Charles, innocence can quickly blur into something more sinister. The turning point occurred on a stormy night at the Metro Court, when a power outage stranded a group of residents in the hotel's bar. Chase, BLQ, Willow, and Michael were among them, along with a small group of others who watched the scene develop like spectators at a play. The soft candlelight formed shadows on the walls, and while the party sipped beverages to pass the time, tensions rose. BLQ, already on edge, made a pointed remark about loyalty, her gaze shifting to Willow. Chase attempted to settle the situation, but Willow's quiet defense of her bond with Chase fueled BLQ's rage. Michael, detecting an undercurrent, drew Willow aside, but not before BLQ's sharp remarks pierced through the air. Maybe some people are better at playing the saint than they are at keeping their promises. The room grew silent and Chase's face hardened. He adored BLQ, but her accusation felt like a betrayal on its own. He defended Willow not to hide anything, but because he believed in her decency. That defense, however, was the spark that lit the explosive keg. BLQ ran off into the rain, leaving Chase conflicted between chasing her and staying to make things right. Willow, guilt-ridden, attempted to apologize, but her words just made matters worse. Michael, ever the protector, advised Chase to focus on his wife, but the harm had already been done. The night concluded with damaged connections and whispered facts lingering in the air. In the days that followed, BLQ's rage turned into action. She hired a private investigator to look into Willow's dealings with Chase, thinking that there was more to their friendship than either acknowledged. The investigator discovered nothing concrete, no secret meetings, no damning evidence, but the absence of proof exacerbated BLQ's fear. She confronted Chase, accusing him of emotional infidelity and hanging onto a history that excluded her. Chase, upset and furious, insisted that BLQ's mistrust was the true threat to their marriage. Their conflicts became louder and more public, and even the Quartermaines, who were no strangers to drama, began to murmur about the impending end. Willow, meanwhile, was battling with her own guilt. She had no intention of interfering with Chase and BLQ, but she couldn't deny the comfort she felt in his company. She attempted to withdraw, to concentrate on her marriage to Michael, but the more she separated herself, the more she discovered how much she missed Chase's consistency. Michael saw her attention, and while he didn't confront her directly, his growing suspicion added to the tension in their already fragile relationship. Willow began to rethink her decisions, wondering whether she'd been too fast to let go of Chase all those years before. The breaking point came during a dinner party hosted by the Corinthos family, which was intended to celebrate a commercial agreement, but quickly devolved into turmoil. BLQ, emboldened by too much wine, openly accused Willow of wrecking her wedding. The entire room froze, all eyes on Willow, who stood dumbfounded, her countenance a mix of disbelief and embarrassment. Chase, taken off guard, attempted to soothe BLQ, but her remarks went harder than intended, affecting not only Willow but also Michael. Michael, who is generally collected, lashes out at Chase, accusing him of disrespecting his marriage. The dispute erupted until Chase and BLQ exited in separate cars, their marriage hanging by a thread. In the aftermath, Port Charles was abuzz with chatter. Some blamed Willow, portraying her as a homewrecker who couldn't let go of the past. Others regarded BLQ's jealousy as the root cause, claiming that her reluctance to trust Chase was what pushed the gulf between them. A few more cynical individuals pointed to Chase, claiming that his attachment to Willow demonstrated that he was never truly devoted to BLQ. The truth, as is customary in Port Charles, was messier than the rumors. Chase adored BLQ, but his attraction to Willow was a gentle undercurrent, not romantic, but founded in a shared past that BLQ couldn't match. Willow, for her part, was not attempting to steal Chase. She was simply lost in her own regrets, trapped in a moment of weakness that spun out of control. Chase and BLQ's marriage deteriorated over the course of weeks. They tried counseling, but BLQ's pride and Chase's frustration slowed their development. Willow, desperate to make things right, cut off all contact with Chase and focused solely on rebuilding her relationship with Michael. But the harm persisted, a reminder that in Port Charles, love is never simple. The weight of history tests friendships, marriages, and loyalties, and no one comes out untouched. Chase and BLQ's concern was not just whether their marriage would survive, but also whether they could regain their faith in each other, or if Willow's shadow would always hover between them. The crowd watched, waiting for the next installment in a drama that was far from over. Some hoped for reconciliation, others for a dramatic conclusion, but everyone agreed on one thing. Nothing is certain in Port Charles, where secrets are currency and love is a battleground.